All right, so Christmas is several days away, but Alabama's already been getting some pretty nice presents.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson with the AHSA Radio Network. That's me. Bama Online's Jimmy Stein. That's normally him, but Bama Online. Jimmy Stein is family tripping it right now, and he's unable to join. But, I just said he's going to text me a few thoughts, which he did, and we will get to those later. So I want to thank you, everydayers, for joining us every day, and you newbies for joining us today. Also want to thank Gametime for being the sponsor of this particular podcast. Thank you so much. Want to get into a few things. This is going to be sort of a machine gun type podcast because there's a lot of news out there, and a lot of it doesn't necessarily warrant a whole segment, but it does definitely warrant being mentioned. First and foremost, I think Jam Miller announcing rather subtly, I don't know, subtly is the word, but just without any fanfare, that he's going to be returning next year. And this is big news to me. Now, look, if you know this podcast, Jimmy and I were super high on Jam and Justice in the summer. And then after the first game, we couldn't have been any higher on it. And then things slowly started to wind down. And, we've talked about Justice Haynes is transferring, and outside of his 85-yard touchdown run in the first game of the year, there just wasn't a lot there. Doesn't mean he's not a good player. Jam Miller, only 600 and some odd yards this year. He does have over 1,000 yards in his career, though. He is a tough runner. And against Auburn, I think he ended up with like 28 carries. So he can certainly handle the workload. He's not going to be a super breakaway back. I think that we've seen enough of a sample size of that. Could it change over the summer? Could he get maybe more speed, more elusiveness? Potentially. But right now, I'm going to call it what it is and say Jam Miller is a very nice SEC back. I don't think he'll be all SEC or anything like that. But I do like that we used him a lot more in the passing game this year. I think he had 13 receptions. The previous year, he only had 4. And so he's coming on. And I think that it's good to return some of this leadership because we're going to need it. It's going to be somebody says, "Where is Jimmy?" I'm sorry, I'm doing this live. So if you're listening on the audio later, I will be responding to a few comments. I know they say not to do that, but when you're going solo, sometimes that's the best. Where's Jimmy? Jimmy is family vacationing and Christmasing right now, so he's not able to go. I will give his playoffs and my playoff picks a little bit later on, though. But back to Jam Miller, I think this is a big return. And I think that Alabama could get some more good news. Jalen Milroe is not going to be back. I'm 100% on that. Some people are sad, some people are happy, some people are indifferent. But I'm willing to bet big money Jalen Milroe will not be back. I'm willing to bet Tyler Booker and Jahad Campbell will not be back. Let's also give an appreciation to Tyler Booker for a minute, and to Jahad Campbell, and to Jalen Milroe for that matter. None of those 3 guys have to play in this game. You've seen some of Michigan's key players opt out for this bowl game, right? And Jalen Milroe, Tyler Booker, Jahad Campbell, 3 of the probably top 5 players on this team. And none of them have to play, and they all are. That needs to be appreciated. Jamie Anderson says, if no Jimmy, how will you know if you're muted? That is a fantastic question. I guess I'll just have to rely on you guys. But Tyler Booker has come and said several times, hey, look, I never gave a thought to sitting out of this game. And I think that he's embraced his gumpishness, and that is wonderful. It needs to be celebrated for sure. He has been named second-team All-American by several services, certainly well-deserved, and very excited for his potential at the next level. Hopefully he's the one that will maintain Alabama's first-round draft pick streak. Now, it could be Jalen Milroe. I know some of y'all are thinking there's no way anybody's taking Jalen Milroe in the first round. There are some mock drafts, especially on CBS, not just like, little Johnny's mock draft that on some Facebook page. This is CBS, and they have him going in the first round. So it could happen. I just want it to continue to happen, just like I want Alabama's double-digit win streak to continue to happen. That's why this Michigan game is very important to me. It's not the biggest deal in the world, I understand, and it won't be awful if we lose. But I'm going to tell you something. Yeah, just think about this. Think about the optics of this. 10-3 going into next year, and 10-3 in Kalen DeBoer's first year looks so much better than 9-4. It's essentially a one-game swing, right? But it is a lot better looking. And I want to talk about in the next segment about Alabama's schedule. We've talked about that in the past, but man, some of these teams that we're going to be playing next year are getting better. South Carolina in particular. I can't wait to talk about Mike Shula being hired a little bit there, but that's going to be very interesting. And that game comes at a very tough time for Alabama. So I'll talk about that in the second segment, because I think South Carolina is going to be very intriguing next year. And they might have, a chip on their shoulder for Alabama for whatever reason, because Alabama would have made the playoffs before them had Clemson not won, yada, yada, yada. But going back to Jan Miller, really appreciate his staying. And it feels like Alabama has weathered the storm on some of these other potential transfers. I know all of you have seen the rumors. It was very famously on Tider Insider yesterday. It was very famously all over Twitter with some other pretty reputable sources that some other SEC team came after a certain Alabama player and initially offered $800,000, then took it to 1.2, and then took it to 1.6, and all this. Luckily, Alabama, whoever it is, nobody seems to know exactly who it is. I bet there's some people who know, but I have not heard exactly who it is. It wouldn't shock, and apparently it wasn't Ryan Williams. My guess is that it would have to have been somebody, maybe Caden Proctor. That's my guess. There's not a lot of other guys worth that kind of money at their various positions. I mean, and apparently the rumor is it was LSU. So, and that's fine, but they're not going to pay that for a Ty Simpson, or, they're not going to do that for Keelan Russell, who just signed. I don't know who in the world else they would do it for. Xavier Brown? I don't know, but that's why I think it was Caden Proctor. That's the only one that makes sense for those kind of dollars. But it just tells you the world we live in with this NIL. I don't like it. I don't think any of us like it. I think all of us would love to get a handle on it, because there's nothing worse than having a marketplace like this with so many unknowns. That's kind of scary. Some Webb's Roll Tide 89 says, I bet you don't read the comments. I do read the comments, bruh. I read them. I try to read them all the time. I mean, sometimes, on past videos, I don't get to all of them, but I try to read all these live ones as I'm sitting here. I promise you, I do my best. So let's go ahead and get to our first break. And then when we come back, I do want to talk a little bit about South Carolina. Well, actually, you know what? Let's talk about Isaiah Horton for a second. I'm going to tell you about Rocket Money right now, though, because, man, what a great service. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about, or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I promise you it's happened to me. You got 4 kids, right? I do. I mean, I say you. I got 4 kids. And so all these kids have all these different subscriptions, and sometimes they overlap. And I don't know it, but Rocket Money has helped me determine where that overlap is and cancel what I need to cancel. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions. Holy cow. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. Rocketmoney.com/locked on is where you want to go to cancel those unwanted subscriptions. And if you're like me, yeah, you had some unwanted subscriptions. Okay, now I want to tell you about Gametime. Gametime is the easiest partner we have for me here at Locked On because I've used it so much. I love Rocket Money. I love FanDuel. I love PrizePicks. Love them all. But I've used Gametime as much as anything. And I've used it for the World Series. I've used it for NBA, used it for college basketball, pro football. And the only time that I ever had an issue, and it was my fault, I was in Miami, and I was trying to get a ticket to the Dolphins game last second, see him play Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Last second thing, and I just got a ticket, and I just hit the wrong button somewhere and screwed something up, and my ticket wasn't coming through. And I called customer service, or actually I think I chatted with them online, and man, they fixed it in like no time. Who does that anymore? Who does that with customer service? It's always automated and punch 1, punch 2. Do you know your extension? Okay, then they hang up accidentally and you got to start over. Gametime's not that way. And they also have the best seats in the house. And you get to see where you're going to be sitting, which is crucial because you want to know if you're going to be behind a big post or something. So it's great. Gametime, go check them out. You'll love them. Download that Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first order. You will love it. Okay, so Isaiah Horton is in Alabama right now. And I like this guy a lot. Okay, look, if you follow this podcast, Jimmy and I love KC Concepcion, and I'm kind of glad it looks like he may not come here because I feel weird every time I say Concepcion. But Isaiah Horton is 6'4", 205 pounds. He was the second leading receiver for Miami in terms of catches, third in terms of yards. When you got Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, if you get a guy like this, the 6'4", 205, kind of feels like a more experienced, better version of Caleb Odom, doesn't it? By the way, Caleb Odom is transferring to Ole Miss. Ole Miss, so weird. They are transfer portal U. I wonder how it's going to affect them next year. They lost 3 games this year. They shouldn't have lost probably more than 1. And they're going to have another opportunity next year to be good because their schedule is pretty lax. But get into that later. Isaiah Horton, like him a lot, again, at Miami. So he's also played in some big games. He's also been involved with playoff discussion, so I don't think the pressure is going to get to him. Sometimes that can be a thing if you go from like a school that maybe has never had to deal with any kind of pressure like that. But I feel like he's going to come in and he can be effective. And I do believe Alabama will land him. I believe they'll land him pretty soon. Mario Craver, who Alabama looked at from Clay Chalkville, I liked him a lot. He's committed to Texas A&M or signed with A&M now, transferred to Mississippi State. KC Concepcion could be going to A&M or somewhere else. I don't think it's going to be Alabama anymore. I would still love to have him. But now you're talking about you're going to sign Horton and KC, and you're going to have Ryan, and you're going to have Jeremy. I mean, it sounds wonderful. I mean, right? I mean, we had the ride outs not too terribly long ago, but I don't think that's going to happen. So Nakai Green Mills from Colorado. This is a guy I also really like. He's going to be visiting this weekend. He started out, was it at Michigan? I think he was at Michigan that he started out. And he's a good player, very strong, inside linebacker. I'd be happy to have him. And another guy to consider, as Alabama's already gotten Cameron Calhoun, and we've talked about him. We've already talked about Kelby Collins, who I love. Another guy is Cam Dewberry, transfer from Texas A&M, and Khalil Tayafai from Washington. I'm going to take a shot at that. Not sure if it's right. Somebody else mentioned, by the way, when I was talking about wide receivers and Jalen Hill, Agreed. Jalen Hill, Bubba Hampton, all those guys. All right. Appreciate all of them. But I'm saying in terms of known commodities. I think Isaiah Horton is a more known commodity than those guys. We all love Jalen Hill because he made that beautiful catch against Ole Miss last year, right? But he has been hurt pretty badly. So, we don't really know what he's going to look like when he comes back. And Bubba Hampton, we hear about the speed. We don't really know what he's going to look like. So, anyway, so Cam Dewberry, offensive line, or this Khalil, I'll just call him that, from Washington, not highly recruited on the front end or in the transfer portal necessarily. But I think Alabama is certainly looking for some offensive line help, and I could live with that, especially if it were to be Dewberry. Now, one other thing I wanted to get into before we get into predictions and talk a little bit about Greg Byrne is South Carolina next year. I know that, again, Alabama podcast, what are you talking about, South Carolina? Well, Alabama plays them next year now, and South Carolina played us tooth and nail this year. They bring back Sellers, the quarterback, who a lot of people think will be one of the top 5 for the Heisman next year. He really came on strong down the stretch. They beat Clemson, who's in the college football playoff, of course. They just hired Mike Shula as offensive coordinator, which is okay. I don't know that Mike Shula as coordinator is perfect for Sellers' skill set, but it should be noted, I think Shula was, at the very least, the quarterback coach for Carolina when they made the Super Bowl with Cam Newton. So he does know how. If he wasn't the offensive coordinator, though, so I'm trying to be devil's advocate and say maybe it's not as bad a hire. Look, pretty famously, Mike Shula is up there for whatever reason with Dubose and Fran for me, because I thought he was so stubborn in his ways on a few things that he never adjusted. I do love him for his quarterbacking. In '85 against Georgia, the big drive again in the Iron Bowl, man, I'll never forget that stuff. I was a young kid, and those are the kind of things that stick with you. And I don't know how many more of those memories we will get now because NIL changes it all, right? But Mike Shula, I appreciate him always as a player. As a coach, I can't get over the fact how stubborn he was about keeping at least one certain offensive lineman in that I thought, hey, put anybody else in there. This guy's getting destroyed, and it's really hurting the team. So I think it's interesting that he's hired at South Carolina. It's not the most dynamic hire in the world. And I feel like, let me tell you something. I wanted to say this about South Carolina too. Do you know who they're bringing in? They've got dudes already everywhere. And Dylan Stewart is amazing. He was National Freshman of the Year, right? Coming off the edge. They're also bringing in Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. And now you say, who the heck is that? Well, he's a 5-star that was at A&M. Alabama was kicking the tires on him, I think. And I would have been thrilled to death if he had ended up choosing Alabama, if we had gone after him a little more. He is something else. And so that gives them another rusher. And they also got this kid named Andrew Jones from Grambling. Now, he is this Jones kid reminds me, do y'all remember the picture of the guy from Baylor many moons ago that actually got in some trouble? He was alleged to have some kind of sexual assault, later proved not guilty or actually just innocent, I think. And it really screwed up his career. But there was a meme of him just standing there, and he didn't have a 6-pack. He had like a whole cooler full of 6-packs, and he's just a menacing beast of a human being. That's what this guy looks like. This guy looks like the office linebacker from those old commercials. That's Terry, what's his name, who does the voice or the America's Got Talent or something like that. He's a beast-looking guy. Now, I mean, he played at Grambling, so maybe he may not translate to the next level. But, dude, he looks like a man. And South Carolina, I don't know offensively how well they're going to be. I really don't know how good they're going to be offensively. And I think Sellers is a good player, but I think he's also getting a little bit hyped right now. That said, their defense is going to be disgustingly good. And that is going to be a tough game for Alabama next year. Coming off the Tennessee game, that 4-game stretch in there for Alabama, where Tennessee's involved, South Carolina's involved, Missouri's involved, it's going to be tough. And so that's going to be a thing. Also, Diego Pavia returning, which is sort of nightmarish, isn't it? Part of me is like, yeah, let's go get a chance to get some redemption. Part of me is like, I don't know if I want to play this guy anymore. All right, I want to tell y'all, you know what's coming up, and we're going to talk about it in the next segment, and that's the college football playoffs. Look, we all wish we were in it, but it is that time of year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoffs begins tonight, starting with the college football – wait a minute. It begins tomorrow. I'm sorry, I got my date wrong. Tomorrow, starting with the college football playoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 o'clock God's time, leading into our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch all the college football playoffs presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. It's going to be a lot of fun, even though we're not in it, and it would be funner if we were. I want to get into our predictions, but I want to say this about, Greg Burns taking a lot of heat on his Twitter plea, email plea for people to donate more to Yay Alabama, saying that, hey, folks are coming after our players and trying to poach, and we need to fight back by getting y'all to give more money. He's not wrong. I mean, I know Mike Farrell went off on him saying he sounded desperate and he's panicking. I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's right. Look, could it have been done a little more classily? Potentially. But we're not in classy times. We're in get in the mud, every man for himself mode. That is everybody across the board. And I don't know. I just feel like if an AD is not out there asking for money, what's he doing? That's all you need right now is money. You need money. When you ask, hey, if somebody were to ask Greg Byrne, what do you want for Christmas? He just needs to say money. I don't need a Tonka truck. They still do Tonka trucks. I don't know why in the world I just said that. I hadn't said Tonka in a long time. A lot of y'all don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But Alabama needs more money. We need to go get it. This Alabama brand is wonderful. I mean, Forbes or one of these business things just put out their most valuable college football programs. Alabama's like top 5 or top 6, but they're not worth $1 billion. Texas is, A&M is, Ohio State is. We're just under $1 billion. We're top 5, top 6. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. But to continue to stay there, we're going to have to really, really get after it. And we're going to have to really start donating. And that means you're $50, you're $75. All that helps. And if you want to keep winning, which we all do, let me tell you something. For us, for Jimmy and me, views on this channel skyrocket when something bad happens to Alabama, a loss or something bad happens. I would rather nobody watch and we win all our games. That's how much I care. Now, I've donated. I don't give a ton because I don't have a ton. I got too many children. I'm about to send a daughter to Alabama. That's going to help them some. But I'm saying, you guys, if you're out there and if you can give $50, $25 a month, whatever, buy some Yay Alabama gear. Buy some, there's a Kalen. I just went on Yay Alabama yesterday. There is a Kalen DeBoer signed football for like $299. Go get, what a wonderful Christmas present. Just go get it. Just go get it. It's $300 and it'll help. It all helps. You go, my 300 doesn't help. But see, if everybody thinks that way, nobody's 300 is going to help. Okay. And little Joe C says, why is this our responsibility? It's not our responsibility, little Joe C. I don't want you to think that. Okay. I'm not saying you have to do this. Nobody is saying you have to do this. Little Joe C, what I'm saying is, do you want to continue to win? This is what it takes. I'm not saying I like it. It is YEA Alabama, by the way. Judd Dog says, is it YAY or YEA? It's YEA. But little Juicy, it's not our responsibility necessarily. It's only our responsibility if we want to win, right? If we want to continue this same type of success. Now, I think in the summer, the university is going to be able to start paying their own money and things like that. Wonderful. It's still not going to be enough because that's just going to add to the pile. So anyway, look, I'm not going to sit here and beg y'all. I'm not going to sit here and Greg burn this thing myself. I'm just saying, if y'all want to keep winning, this is what we have to do. If you're fine with everybody else passing us, so be it. Don't donate. Not a big deal. But then I do think you lose your right to complain we don't win enough. I do think you lose your right to do that. So, all right, let's get into some predictions really quickly. About ruin this by talking too much about crap I didn't mean to talk about. All right, so I'm going to tell you Jimmy's predictions first, and I'll just sort of run down with them too. Notre Dame against Indiana tonight. Jimmy, I'm reading verbatim his text to me. Notre Dame is too good at the line of scrimmage for Indiana. This won't be a blowout, but Indiana is just not good enough to win this game. I agree across the board. I'm going to tell you something else. The snow, and Notre Dame put out a tweet like they got a snowman already in the stadium and all this stuff. So it's definitely snowing. Is not going to affect Indiana either. And that may be somewhat of an equalizer. I'm going to say Notre Dame wins by 4. So if you are the gambling type, I'm going to take Indiana tonight, and I suspect you might want to too. I don't like that, by the way. I want Notre Dame to win. Jimmy and I have been saying all along, we want schedules to matter. We also like the brand names. It's more fun. But regardless, I think Indiana covers tonight. So tomorrow you got Penn State and SMU. He says Penn State, the Nittany Lions struggle with top 10 teams. Luckily for them, SMU isn't really a top 10 team. Again, totally agree. I think this one may be less close. I think SMU is it felt like the stage was a little big for them in the ACC championship game. Clemson took their feet off the gas, or the ACC intervened and said, hey, we want to get 2 teams in, so let's let SMU back in this thing. I'm teasing, kind of. So I'm going to go Penn State wins that one too. At least I hope they do. Texas, and Jimmy says if there's a first-round blowout, it's probably this one. Clemson loses for the 4th time. Isn't that weird? Clemson could be 10-4. Again, a 4-loss team. I know they lose in the playoffs still. And that's what we would have been, I guess. But I'm just saying this. I don't love that, even if it's Alabama. There's part of me that wants to pick an upset here. This is classic Dabo, little old Clemson, wearing Target khakis to the game and a tattered Clemson sweatshirt, and just they don't think we have a chance. They got all this oil money. We're just little old Clemson. We're Auburn with a lake. And anyway, I'm going to pick Texas, but I'm going to say it's close. Now, Jimmy goes Tennessee in the game of the day. He thinks that Tennessee wins the line of scrimmage and he thinks the Vols have the better quarterback. He thinks it's close, but he likes the Vols to win 21-20. I'm going to say Ohio State wins. I'm kind of rooting for Tennessee for SEC. But anyway, I'm going to go Ohio State, and he's going to go Tennessee. So we'll have more predictions later. A couple of quick comments that I want to get to. Patrick Quinley says, Luke, please explain why the university can't pay the players directly. They have to be paid from a collective separate from the university. Yes, but that is changing. That is changing. That will be changing, I think, this summer. Let's see here. Somebody says, if you're worried about where the money is going to, send them a check memoed for football or football NIL. They legally have to use the money for what you earmarked it for. Okay. I'll take your word for that. I don't know if that's right or wrong. John Simpson asked, is Milroe staying or going? I 100% believe he is going. 100%. And again, some people love it. Some people don't. I'm a little indifferent about it because, boy, Jalen Milroe still got so much talent to me, and I love him as an ambassador for this university. And it would be great to have a revenge tour with him next year. At the same time, maybe he's hit his ceiling in college. Randall Davis says, put a cap on NIL, levels the playing field. Impossible. Can't do it. Not legal. not legal. I mean, you can't put a cap on what somebody can make advertising wise. And okay, you're saying, well, that's not what it is right now. That's true. That's what it's supposed to be. And that's what it would turn into. So that's why I'm saying Oregon's always going to have a leg up, even if the universities can pay players, right? Oregon will be paying, everybody will get $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year, whatever it is. And then Nike will say, okay, Naheem Alford, we're going to also create a shoe for you. Alabama can't do that. Auburn can't do that. Tennessee can't do that. So those schools are always going to have a leg up. Well, look, we will be back very shortly. Jimmy is Christmasing. We will all be Christmasing. I want to say this, man. I seriously 100% mean this, that Jimmy and I have been doing this now for several years. This channel has grown immensely. We appreciate you guys from the bottom of our hearts. This is a lot of fun for us. Yes, it's turned into something where we can make some money on the side. We're not quitting our day jobs. But for the most part, we do this because we love it and we love interacting with you guys. And we appreciate you so very much. And I want every single one of y'all out there to have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. I want you to go have a great one. And look forward to talking to you guys again very soon. We will talk again before Christmas, but just in case I don't get to see or talk to some of you, I wanted to say that. So until next time, roll tide.